I think the more that you respond to that, the more, I don't want to say it becomes a normalcy, but you know what you're expecting going in. But I can remember the first few times of deploying with Minuteman, standing on a pile of debris and just looking out across and seeing house after house after house that's gone, and realizing that, you know, in the U.S. we're just so blessed that we have access to the things that we need at any moment. We have all kinds of things. We have multiple cars and nice homes, and these types of things. But really, in a moment, it can all be gone. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, actually, and raised in Broken Arrow, which is a suburb of Tulsa, and went all through school there in Broken Arrow. My graduating class was about 1,100, so it was pretty big. A lot of people there, you know, and I wasn't really too involved in school stuff. You know, I wanted to get in and get out. I have 2 sisters and a brother. They're all younger than me. Yeah, I would say my siblings were probably a little bit more engaged. My parents actually divorced when I was 10, and so my siblings came along later, and I didn't live with them. I just see them, you know, every other weekend. But I would say they were probably more engaged in school and extracurricular activities at school and things like that than I was. My wife, she was a friend at the time. It was interesting, you know, for us, we started dating, and you know, I wouldn't say I necessarily grew up in church. From, you know, time to time I would go with my grandparents, but she told me, she said, if we're going to date, you got to go to church with me. So I started going to church with her, and that's where my life really started kind of getting on the right path. And 2 years later, got married. I would definitely say that had I not met her and had we not ended up getting married and such, my life would probably be a lot different than it is today. And then not in a good way, you know.
My name is Mark Namey, and I'm a retired electrical engineer from Raytheon. I grew up in Ohio. I had a sister and parents, small family. My sister still lives there. My dad was a manager of a printing company, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Went to school, went to college for undergrad, took a job in California, was there for about 11 years. My wife and 2 daughters, we moved here in 1998, and my daughters are grown, and one's in grad school and married, and the other one finished grad school and is working in Denton. I'm very proud to say that my one daughter is getting her master's in social work, and the other daughter got a master's in counseling. So both of them are looking to help others to get through life. So to me, that's the ultimate challenge, is get your children to be involved with helping people. I've always been bent towards helping others. My father taught me that. When I was young, my father used to do a lot of March of Dimes collections. He was a volunteer fireman. So he was in Knights of Columbus, which is a Catholic men's organization that does a lot of outreach. So again, it was just something that we did in our family.
Charity is not necessarily something that I sought out, serving people. It wasn't something that I would say came naturally to me, but it was something that was instilled in me by my grandmother. She is now passed, but when my parents had divorced, I found myself spending a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother would take me to school, pick me up, these types of things. And she was retired, and at that time very active in the local food pantry, and so I naturally found myself there with her. And people who were in need would come in and receive counseling and clothing and food, and I would help bag up groceries and carry groceries to their car. And so through that time, that's really, when I look back, that's really what I identify as kind of the thing that really got that that desire to help people who were in need. And so that just kind of led me from one thing to another.
My name is Russell Dobbs. I've lived in this area most of my life. Grew up in Plano, moved to McKinney, and to Frisco now. I went to school at the University of Oklahoma, and right as I was leaving school, a big tornado hit Moore, Oklahoma. And I was there in Norman, just south of Moore, and a small tornado went right behind where I lived. So living through that kind of influenced my decision-making with this type of work. I joined Minuteman in January of 2017. And the reason I did that is because a relief team started. So where it wasn't a team that was immediately responding to the disasters, but a team that went in as the homeowners come back.
In 2011, I received an email message. Someone was inviting me to come and be a part of a citizens emergency response training that was being done here in McKinney. And so that's when I first got on board. I didn't realize that I was getting involved with this organization that's called Minuteman. I thought I was going to be a part of the CERT team, as it's called, but that ended up ultimately turning into being a part of Minuteman.
I'm the outreach director for St. Gabriel's Catholic Church in McKinney, and in early 2017, I was looking for a way to help the community in some way in outreach, and I found the organization Minuteman. So I was looking for something a little bit more. I wanted to be an EMT after I retired as an engineer. This gave me the latitude to be able to do those kinds of things without the formal training, and on top of that, being a volunteer and helping somewhere in my community and helping people in need.
Well, my heart is always to get out and serve people, and at that particular time, my role on church staff was outreach and missions, and so it was very much complemented my profession, if you will. It also brought about a sense of adventure with it, right? Serving in disasters has a bit of an adventure to it.
When you see somebody who looks helpless and they don't really know what am I going to do and how are we going to make it out of this, there is that rush of being able to help and being able to show them that there is hope. And bringing that hope really excites you.
We didn't know what we were getting into. The four guys, when they initially said, we want to do this, they didn't know what that meant. And so many things we've just kind of learned along the way.
You have to learn not to say, well, I know how you feel, or, you know, to try to give them something where that you have no idea, to put yourself in their shoes. So that was the most hardest part to understand, that they've gone through something you can't comprehend, and that you just need to understand that you're there to listen to them and not talk to them. They want to tell you their story, and it's your job to listen to them and to help out the best way you can.
For individuals who go through that, for homeowners, families that go through that, when we're helping them pick up the pieces, it's not about the big screen TV that's lost. It's not about their fancy car, but it's about the people.
My first deployment was April of 2017 in Canton, Texas. Had several tornadoes that went through there.
We watched, there were the results of an F4 and an F5 tornado pretty much wipe houses completely off of their foundations. We worked with several people in the Canton area. The devastation was pretty dramatic. I'd never seen anything like that in my life.
And it was our first deployment for our relief team. So I was part of that, and it was really a joy to be able to help those people and lend a hand.
My first deployment with Minuteman was to the Granbury, Texas tornado in 2013. I was there for 3 or 4 days, came home for a couple of days, and then Moore, Oklahoma was hit. And so really within a matter of a week and a half, I had 2 deployments under my belt right away. And having been gone for a few days on one and coming home for a couple of days and then saying to my family, hey, I'm gonna leave again, it had its own challenges.
Deployment is different. It not only takes my time away from work, but it also takes my time away from my family. So there is a lot of scheduling and logistics that needs to be done at home before I can ever even leave. Making sure, number one, that my wife and my children are taken care of.
We're traveling, sometimes 400 miles away from our family, so, my wife has to deal with being here by herself. But that's the opposite, just be away from your family, which all of us as volunteers, that's what we sign up for.
My life had not always been about being gone and traveling and this type of thing. It was always about being home. So now I was gone. I came home for a couple of days and be gone again. So you can imagine the kind of the tensions of the house, if you will, of that.
My family situation is probably different than most others. I just got remarried in July. So it is some juggling up front with the work life, with the home life, making sure everything's taken care of at home first before I can actually leave to go serve.
To explain what does that mean to me to go and serve people, and that was important for my wife to understand. And so, you know, as we've moved forward, she's obviously has understood that the value that I find in going and serving people in this way. Our deployments had always been based around tornadoes, but every one of them, the debris looked very similar, but the stories were different from the people that we met. And our tasks were often different. We might be tasked with, as we were in Granbury, searching for some missing children. We might be tasked, like we were in Moore, to go through the neighborhood streets and identify hazards such as propane tanks and guns, other weapons that might be scattered about, and gathering those kinds of things up. There's always something different that we've done. But we've always learned from that and grown from that, and that's really what's brought us to the place today where really we have an organization that has found itself to be respected in the emergency response community and become a very valuable asset out there. So there's a lot of organizations out there who are doing a lot of great things in disasters, but we did not know of any organization that was doing what we were doing, which was to actually get in, track storms, and be there on the ground when the storm came through. So that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart, you know, is being able to be on the ground immediately and to serve from the moment of impact through the weeks following with cleanup and whatever it might.
This is an ABC News special report. Hurricane Harvey, state of emergency. Now reporting, Juju Chang.
I'm Juju Chang at ABC News headquarters in New York, and we are coming on the air for breaking news. Hurricane Harvey barreling into the Texas coastline as a Category 4 storm with 130-mile-an-hour winds. It's the first Category 4 storm to hit the U.S. in over a decade.
Hurricane Harvey was a game changer for Minuteman.
We have never done a hurricane before. This organization had never dealt with a hurricane before.
Most of everything we had done has been in regards to tornadoes.
It was quite a large operation for us to deal with something of such a catastrophic event.
You did see some things like a tornado because of the wind speed, the damage that was done, but then you also have the water combined.
Typically, when we do a tornado, we come in, you're there for maybe a week, you help clean up, you help do search and rescue, but this was a 6-week in South Texas.
As that storm was getting closer and closer, we knew we were going to deploy, we just didn't know where.
So for us in our organization, when Hurricane Harvey was, you know, brewing out in the Gulf Coast, we began daily having conference calls with our leadership. And these are volunteers. These aren't, I'm not speaking of paid staff members. I'm talking about people who have families and jobs that they have to manage outside of Minuteman. And so we would have these conference calls to really set up what our organization would be doing. That led us to, on on the Friday that the storm was. On the Friday that the storm made landfall, we ended up sending a team to Bastrop to stage, and ultimately on down into Refugio on Saturday.
So when we found Refugio, Texas, that's where we decided to land. And that community changed how I operate and what I do within Minuteman. It was a life changer for me, not just with Minuteman, but for my outlook and how to help people and how to interact with people during those times.
With Hurricane Harvey, you have a storm that hits one portion of the Gulf Coast and does devastating damage with wind. And while we are there helping that community, now the storm has come over Houston and just basically parks there and dumps over 50 inches of rain on the city. People will get in their truck untrained, unprepared, and head off to a place that they've never been before to try to do a job they've never done before, and then they become part of the problem. What was hard with that situation is we weren't in a position where we could serve Refugio and go to Hurricane Harvey or go to Houston to serve with the floodwaters.
So what we did is we rotated teams that would just go in there for 3 or 4 or 5 days, just depending upon what people could do, and rotated people back and forth between, the Metroplex and Refugio, Texas.
A lot of different types of things were expected of the organization, so it was a much larger event than we had been trained for.
We were in Refugio for almost a month, I believe. What we did is we served the first responders there. So we were inside their base camp, basically, where we interacted with the local judge so that we could go in and help the police officers, the firefighters, anybody who worked with local law enforcement to get their houses in order. Let's clean up their yards, make it easier on them, and help them to be better at what they do.
As with every disaster that we go on, there's always something that we come back with and we say, okay, we need to do this differently, and here's how we can improve our process. I think that deep down inside every one of us, there's a desire to help people. And as bad as natural disasters are, it always brings out the good of people. We always see people rally together that maybe haven't rallied together before to fight through something difficult.
I like being, involved as much as I can. I like to be deeply involved in any organization I work with. Minuteman is certainly my #1 priority right now, as far as volunteering to do, service for the community, because it has such a high impact on those that have lost so much. We have a great team, a great leadership structure. We have been very lucky to have people that are looking to serve others without any worry about themselves.
My mission isn't to all the world. My mission is to this part of the world. My mission is within a 400-mile radius of Dallas. My mission is to go and help the people of Kingsland, Texas, of Canton, Texas, of Refugio, Texas, of Brazoria, Texas.
We go to the places where nobody else has gone. We go to the places that's been forgotten. We go to the places where maybe the TV cameras and news stations aren't there, but there's a need, and that's where our heart is. That's our mission, is to go serve those people.